Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Life Administration. My name is Ryan Taylor, and with me, as always, is...
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay, Ryan and I haven't even had a chance to, talk, because normally Ryan and I, we talk a bit while we're setting up and stuff like that. Well, I'll let you tell it.
Well, first off...
Because he's got a fancy laptop, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, first off, today's my anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you. I won't sing anymore, I promise.
Do people sing happy anniversary like happy birthday?
You can. I mean, it fits.
It does fit, but I've actually never heard it.
I've never heard that.
Happy anniversary to my beautiful wife. I love you, sweetheart. We are frustrated, though. Okay, I just get that out, right? So, all right, so we're frustrated because... So yes, I have the laptop that runs all the things. I edit from it. Mm-hmm. It's my baby. Mm-hmm. And this laptop has a very particular power cord that has to pump about 230 watts of power to this bad boy right here.
Right, because the first thing I asked when he told me this, I was like, "Do I have one that you?" No. And he would know because he's done a lot of our tech stuff when we moved into this house. So he knows what spare cords I have. Yeah. He's like, you don't have this one.
This cord is specific. Like it's only for this laptop. Anyway, so Sean, cameraman from days past, had some drone footage.
Days of yore.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And he needed someone to edit it. And I said, hey, dude, I can get it. I can edit in 5 minutes what you can edit in 5 hours. Like, I'll just come knock it out for you. It'll take me just 2 minutes. So I go over there, knock it out very quickly, bring my stuff over.
This is the shocking part.
Right? So then, I hadn't seen him in like a week and a half, and we're chit-chatting. I got to get home. I'm packing my stuff up. I pack
They're
it up.
They're talking. They're having a drink.
Yeah, I put my backpack on. I'm like, all right, buddy, I'll see you later, right? So I never checked my bag this morning because I'm like, everything's in there. Nothing's upstairs. Well, I get here, I set everything up, camera, lights, microphones, everything ready to go. And I bring my laptop open. And there's no power cord. Now you might be asking, well, hey, that's not that big of a deal. You have a battery. Well, let me tell you something about this battery. It lasts about 37 minutes. And that's not an exaggeration. It draws so much power that it wouldn't even make it through an episode.
And 37 minutes is a rushed episode for I don't know if we've done, when we did our general announcement, I don't know if we beat 37 minutes.
Yeah, so right. You couldn't play through on that. Mm-mm. So he lives in Fulshire, which is about 45 minutes from here. And so I drove out there, literally unplugged the power cord, gave him a high five, and walked right out the door and turned around and came back. And y'all, it's hot today. It's hot.
So right now in the studio, it's freezing.
Yep.
And I'm coming upstairs going, it's so cold because I've been downstairs in my bed working on show notes and other life administration things, of all things. And he's been out and, going back, and he's like, oh, it feels great in here. I'm like, anyway, so
there we are.
Yeah, so we haven't done our pre-episode debrief. Nothing.
This is fresh out of the oven. Let's just hope that the bread is actually baked all the way through.
Who knows?
So our episode today, in continuing in our series, this would be part 3 in our series, is life administration for parents of toddlers.
Yes. And as we discussed, as we left off last time, toddlerdom really starts about the time that they get mobile, because what we associate with the terrible twos or all of that mayhem of the age has a lot to do with independence and the child wanting more independence and gaining more skills and wanting to be away and get independence from mom and dad, but not wanting to, because frankly, there's still only one, right?
Right.
But so there's a lot of tension between, okay, now I can move and now I can toddle away, or at the beginning, it's just, crawling away, and then it's pulling up on the coffee table and cruising around it away. But I mean, we've all seen the toddler that just all of a sudden, like, everything's going fine, and then they have a meltdown, like you're walking into the kitchen and they're crawling and following, but then they have a meltdown as they go through the door. I'm like, what in the world? Just, do I go through the door? Do I not go through the door? And we're talking about a being that doesn't yet have any tolerance for frustration or any sort of internal feel. Like, that's your job in this phase, is to start installing those.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what we're going to talk about today. But so the terrible twos, they kind of start building about the time that kiddo takes their first, real crawly steps, when toddler can get away from mom and dad and has the option to get away from mom and dad, all of a sudden you start to see some of this angst come in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you negotiate. And it lasts. There's 2 step downs. We'll talk about kids next. And I start kids at 5. But really, you're looking at toddlerdom starts around 9 months when they start cruising. It's really in full swing at 18, 24 months, which is why we call them the terrible twos. You get your first bump down if you're doing it right. If you do some of the stuff that we're talking about here and setting some boundaries and helping them learn to cope with frustration, etc. You get a bump down about 3. Okay. And you have a 4-year-old and you've probably seen this a bit. They just get a little bit, they can do a little bit more for themselves. You can explain a little bit more to them. You get another big bump down at 5. And 5 is, these are also remember we talked about last time that normal is a range. For this kid, it's 4 years and 6 months. For this kid, it's almost 6 years old. Totally normal. But about 5, all of a sudden, you get another bump down, and then you start to move into actual kid range.
My daughter her birthday was the 6th, so that was 2 days ago, and she just turned.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, right. She just turned 5. Right. It's a very packed week for me. I got kid's
you
birthday,
are.
Easter. Easter was just a couple days ago. Like whoa, right? But I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Just loving a lot of stuff. Anyway.
He's also got a tickle. You okay? Breathe.
I'm fine. Okay. So at 5, yes, that step down has started. Like we noticed it maybe just a little bit earlier, but there was this sort of sense of she is just becoming more independent in the sense of I don't have to stare like what she's eating. Like she's going to eat when she's hungry. I don't have to manage those things anymore.
Right. You can say, go brush your teeth. She's going to, you don't have to do the brushing for her, much less stand over and make sure it's done.
Yep. She can go pick out her clothes like it's easier. Right.
Yes.
But I want to just circle back to a second about, 18 people that are just walking around, toddlers that are just walking around. And you have to understand what they're actually going through. And so I'm going to paint this in a picture that only I can. Right?
I'm scared now.
No, it would be like, because they have no reference points. Right. So something that you and I don't have a reference point would be is if aliens landed in your driveway right now and they said, you have to come with us right now or the entire planet is going to explode.
Right.
We would most likely have some sort of a meltdown. You can't call anybody. You don't have time. You got to come right now. We have no reference point for these feelings. Right. Who knows what we would do in that
don't
in that
even
moment.
know what authorities to seek out, like off the reservation I have no context.
Yeah, no context, no reference. Now, with that being said, I can then turn around, go back into my house. Like I know what my house is like. Toddlers have the alien problem nonstop.
All the time.
There is no
everything is.
There is no refuge from this completely overwhelming, no frame of reference, no context. It's kind of easy to see why they melt down. Right?
Which gets us to, look at our segue now. Gets us to our first point. Here, schedules and routines are your friends because the first reference points that they're really going to get is the immutability of schedules and routines and the people that are around them.
Yes.
They start to rely on those things, and that starts to build somewhat of a frame of reference. Now, it's really, it's hard at the beginning at 10, 11, 12 months. And then they slowly build up. And so that by the time they're 3, well, now they have some things that they know and they have some points of reference. Then they have some, I know that mom is always going to be there and dad's always going to be, or whatever it is. Right. Schedules and routines are totally your friends. That's the first refuge that you're going to go in on this stuff is we want them kind of tight.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way that they don't need to be for kids, way that they don't need to be for you adults and stuff like that. But schedules and routines are the one thing that they're like, okay, I can count on. It seems like it's mid-morning. That's about the time somebody feeds me.
Right.
And better yet, about the time that she or he feeds me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
some of them have more rules than others.
And that's really what I was about to say, was that how you sort of manage this, your scheduling is going to be, okay, let me back up a second. Let's say you have a toddler that is 10 months old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You hear this podcast for the first time, and what you've realized is they have been sort of setting the schedule.
Yes.
Okay. So this isn't, you don't want to take like this hard right into schedule town, I don't think, right? You want to do incremental things, because a child that has no structure that all of a sudden is plopped into structure it's a recipe.
Feels like they're in cement.
Yeah, right. It's not going to be good. So you got to start.
By the way, in the last episode was why we talked about setting some of these schedules and stuff up early, because it's easier to do then.
Yes.
Because if you've gotten to the 10-month phase and you've not done, then yes, you have to do it incrementally, and you need to do it slowly, incrementally. You need to get one set before you add on another. Sorry, I totally cut him off there, but that was the rhyme and reason. Why do I have to schedule a 3-month-old?
Yeah.
This is why. Because it's easier to do then.
You can imprint, right?
Right.
Very quickly. They're still trying to like see, you know what I mean? Like you can imprint very quickly. So you got to sort of know that going into it. And then for my pre-parents, I still want to offer some things that you can take out of this. And so for those that are, and you might already know this, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but just in case you don't, if you are prone to some sort of anxiety, if you feel aimless and you don't really sort of know what's like, make a schedule for yourself, right? And start to stick to it, because when you start to have the comfort of, okay, at 7:30 I do this, at 8:30 I do this, at 9 o'clock I do this, whatever that looks like for you, but I would encourage you to, whatever the most important thing in your life is, like that should be getting the most attention in the morning. That will help you have success throughout the rest of your day. So that's my sprinkling for my pre-parents out there. So yes, success or schedules and routines, they're definitely your friends. Let's talk about guarding them a little bit. When we have to zigzag, what does that look like?
You do, because sometimes you do have to zigzag. First of all, let's talk about this. Things like holidays, birthdays. I would let my kids get off like kind of all their schedules, but it would just happen for a day. If they're going to stay with grandma and grandpa for a weekend, okay, it's totally fine if grandma and grandpa have a different schedule than you have. Now, when they're younger and when you're trying to establish a schedule, that's different. When you're trying to establish the schedule, everybody kind of needs to be on the same page. Once the schedule is established, and you might remember back to some early life administration stuff when we were talking about household management and your routines, same thing applies here. Once you have the routine established, if it breaks for some reason, it's easier to go back to it. Okay. Same thing applies to toddlerdom. If it's the winter holidays, it's Christmas break, and so you're on vacation for a week visiting family or something like that. Yes, you can get off schedule. And if you have established a schedule previously, when you get back home, it will be easier to reestablish. Okay. If you don't have a schedule at all, and then you go and really start throwing wrenches in the work and everything's different, again, the frame of reference is kind of aliens. And what is someone else's house to an 11-month-old? They've been in their house the whole time, and now they're somewhere where the noises are different, the smells are different. Heck, some of us as adults don't sleep very well when we're not in our own home for the same reason. Yeah. Okay. Kids with no frame, they might as well be on an alien spaceship.
Yep.
So if you don't have any routine at all, then yes, these things can really just get crazy. And then you don't have anywhere to come back and get recentered, right? So, but there will be times, and it's totally fine to break the schedule.
Yes.
Right. Other things are new babies come along. So you've got a toddler and now you've got a new baby coming along. Yes, the schedule's going to get broken. Moves, the schedule's going to, there's all sorts of things that the schedule can get broken on. But in general, once you have established, spend about 3 weeks, 4 weeks establishing a schedule. If you're trying to do it, if you haven't done any scheduling with a child and you were trying to do it incrementally, it's going to take longer than 3 or 4 weeks. If you've kind of scheduled an infant all the way up, then adding, making a more rigid schedule when they're 12 months old is not that difficult. That'll take you but spend a couple of weeks kind of establishing it.
Yep.
once you've done that on the normal days, on the ordinary time days, don't deviate for more than about 30 minutes, especially for food and for sleep. Playtime, that play date that you have with the neighbors down the street, whatever it is, that can deviate by 45 minutes without much of a meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to push a toddler, a 14-month-old and say, they're used to eating at 12:30 and you're trying to get them to eat at 1:30, good luck. Or have something
Right.
for them to nibble on in the middle, right? Or pushing sleep. Oh, as every parent will tell you, we all want daylight savings to go. We don't really care if the government powers that be pick standard time or daylight savings time. Doesn't matter. Pick one, because just the act of switching 1 hour with a little kid, we're talking under fives here. We won't speak of it.
Everyone in Arizona and Indiana who are laughing right now. Go like,
yeah, exactly. Lucky dogs.
No daylight savings.
Oh my gosh. It's right. But just shifting 1 hour one way or another can throw a toddler off for 10 days. Easy.
Let me be clear here.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. Moving sleep and moving go, hear me when I say this, is do not pass go, do not collect $200, go directly to jail.
Yes.
Like that's where you're going to be until this gets sorted for the night, right?
Because tired babies and tired toddlers don't sleep well.
Yes,
they even if you have installed some frustration tolerance for them, it'll go down when they're tired and or hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they'll get whiny or temper tantruming, or they won't sleep as much, and then you won't sleep. And by the way, all of these things also apply to adults. Just because adults are capable of controlling their frustration, when my kids were little, I was a terrible mother at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because you're slow and you're just like, just go to sleep.
If I'm craving a Big Mac and you want me to read you a story, it's going to be the shortest story that you ever seen, right? Or ever heard. I mean, that's the reality. So imagine now that you're on the alien ship and you don't even know if you're going to be fed.
Right.
Right. Like you don't even know that that's actually going to happen. There's not a restaurant in 17 light years on this alien spaceship.
As far as you know.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as you know. So again, understand the importance of why that rhythm is so important, because they don't know. They have no idea what's happening.
Right. So don't.
It's like me on a Monday morning. I have no idea what's happening.
But even then you do. Exactly. Because it's Monday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 30 minutes is really try to keep things tight. By the way, you will know, sometimes it happens with a little kid or baby. You just waited 5 minutes too long.
Yeah.
You stayed at the family barbecue. Kid was just fine. And then they showed the first signs of, oh, I'm a little bit tired. And you're like, oh, I'm just going to finish up this conversation, or I'm going to finish up whatever I'm doing. Okay. You'll learn and by the way, each kid is different. Each kid has their own person. Some kids have, some kids naturally come installed with the ability to deal with a 30-minute deviation. Some kids can't deal with a 30-second deviation, right? They come with their personalities already, and you can make the 30 seconds longer, you can make the 30 minutes shorter, but what you're not going to do is turn 30 minutes into 30 seconds or vice versa, right? But man, we've all been there where you're just like, 5 minutes too long. I should have pulled this ripcord 5 minutes ago and we would have been fine. Little one would have fallen asleep in their car seat on the way home. No.
Yeah.
No, because now it's a screaming. And by the way, driving with a screaming baby and or toddler in the back is very distracting. And stressful.
It's wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to drive with screeching nails in the back?
Right. Right.
So here, I'm a big analogy guy. And I think this is, again, it's not a Monopoly reference, but I did talk about football 2 episodes ago. And so kind of going back to that metaphor for a second, when you're a quarterback, you have what they call a quarterback clock in your head. Typically what that means is as you're reading the play and, the ball has been snapped, you have about 3 to 4 seconds to get rid of that ball. eventually you get to a point where you don't even count. You know how many steps you take. You know if this is a three-step drop or 5-step, whatever. But you have this clock in your head.
You've drilled it so many times, you know it.
Yes. Guess what? The same quarterback clock can now become the parenting clock.
Yep.
And let me tell you, if you go past the quarterback clock in football, you get sacked, loss of down, the chances of you scoring on that drive significantly are diminished. If you go past the parenting clock, it's the same thing, okay? Like it's over.
Excellent analogy.
Yeah, it's over. And so the second that you get, so as a quarterback, you go, I better get rid of the ball or I'm going to get sacked. And typically what's happening is like you're letting go of the ball and you're getting hit. And you go, whew, got rid of the ball.
Right.
Thank goodness. But if you wait a 1/10 of a second too long, you could fumble, you get sacked, whatever. And as a parent, if you wait a 1/10 of a second too long in your situation, screaming kid that doesn't sleep, that night you're not going to be able to get any sleep, which now is Tuesday, and your whole Tuesday is a slog of trying to just get the schedule back going because you felt like you needed to finish really what was a pointless conversation at some whatever, right? Like, trust me, don't get sacked.
Don't get sacked. I like it. Don't get sacked. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm going to have to steal that analogy.
That's fine. That's fine.
Because it's totally 100% true.
Yep.
Okay. Now, with the schedules, though, Tari, I know this is going to sound oxymoronic. You still need some flexibility.
Freedom within the framework.
Freedom within the framework. Biggest one I can think of is toddlers and meals. Okay. So the baby, once you got the baby on some sort of like mealish schedule, or even if you didn't, you can kind of notice the baby just eats all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Lots that has to do with growth spurts, everything else. And there's so much growing that, the amount of growing and developing that a baby does in the first 18 months of life is huge. Okay. It's still exponential. Like 18 months to 3 is still a lot of growth. It's not as much growing and growth as happened at 0 to 18. Toddlers do this streaky thing. For 3 days, they will eat you out of house and home. And then for the next 2 days, they'll eat a noodle.
Yeah.
Like for the whole 2 days. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
A little bit, maybe.
A little bit.
Exaggerating.
But yes, it's just, so yes, you need to have a schedule. You need to have the scheduled meal times and stuff, but you can't get too worked up about it if, one day your toddler's eating everything and the next day but like, just kind of go with it a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously if they're having meltdowns and all this kind of stuff, then yes, try to get some food into them. Because a lot of times that has to, low blood sugar will affect those without frustration tolerance more than it will affect us adults who, at least theoretically, should have more frustration tolerance, right?
Questionable
sometimes. Right. So kind of, once again, you've got a bit of a football clock. By the time you've got an 18-month-old, you've got a bit of a football clock for your own kid anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And so you'll kind of have an idea if this is just, kid not being hungry or kid really needs something to eat. Right. Yeah. But you just kind of got to go with it.
Yeah. And I think, I had a lot of frustration around this particular point because we're always so concerned with getting Hallie to eat, right? Eat. And now she had some food allergies and things like that. But, I can tell you, like, dinner time should not be a place of frustration. And you don't want to make, like, dinner time should be a time of peace and happiness and joy and all
family
that.
Togetherness.
Yeah, right. The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, he's being a bit happy about this because sometimes there's strife and I have 4 kids, there's bickering.
Well, yeah.
Right. But it's still.
You're still together. Right. You're still sort of figuring, you
don't want it to be a battlefield.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But you don't want to set the terms of your toddler is afraid because they're not hungry. And so this whole dynamic can start to creep up. Right. And so then parent gets frustrated because child's not eating. Child's frustrated because they don't have the skills to communicate that, hey, I'm not hungry. I just went on a 3-day binge, Right. And by the way, when mom was here and you weren't home, she forgot to tell you that I took down a block of cheese or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
exactly.
whatever. So you got to just be patient with that. you got to roll. You got to play the hand that you're dealt, right? And just relax.
Well, and also let's go back to what toddlerdom actually is. It's a major component of it is conflict between I am now more independent and I'm able to do more things for myself. We talked about it earlier in the terms of walking away, but it also means in controlling what I eat. All right. And especially if you have a headstrong toddler, they're determined to win that battle. So just the act of trying to make them eat food will make them refuse food that even if they are a little bit hungry, just on principle, because they're going to prove to you, mom and dad, that they are in charge. So if you don't give them a little bit of room to sometimes be like, I'm not hungry, you can end up creating a battlefield where one really didn't exist before. But now toddler's like, ooh, line in the sand. I am going to be the boss of me. Again, this is very personality specific. Some kids do this more than other kids.
Yes.
I will warn you, parents. If you were like that as a child, and you have a child like that, like some, because mom and dad are, let's say it's dad. Actually, I'm in charge of me. When he was a kid, I was in charge of me. And now daughter comes along and I'm in charge of me. Well, we can get in a real stubborn, quick stubborn battle of wills here. So if you ask your mom, ask your dad, were you that kind of kid? If you were that kind of kid, then kind of be aware you might see some of that stuff coming out in your own kid. But you don't want to inadvertently turn things into battlefields. Now, I do have a little tip for this is what we kind of used. We used most of the time. Whatever it was that I was cooking. First of all, don't be a short order cook. Just don't do it. A short order cook meaning like, okay, so I'm cooking dinner tonight, so I ask everybody what they want to eat, and I cook something for dad, and I cook something for baby because baby wants something different. No, cook what you cook and serve it. 1, 2. Let's say we're having chicken, peas, and why can't I even think?
Carrots?
Chicken, peas, and carrots. That works great. Okay. I would tell my kids, 1, you have to try everything. And I don't care if you didn't like it last week. Whenever I put it in front of you, you have to try it again. Okay. So you have to try 1 bite of everything. And you can have, after you've tried 1 bite of everything, you can have second helpings of whatever you want. Okay. Because, here's the other thing that we kind of left off of this. Toddlers also eat in streaks. Yeah. There was a time that my nephew in particular, it was like a year and a half where he was a threat to the world avocado production. And we were pretty sure he was going to turn green. He was going to poop green, like all of it. He ate avocados almost exclusively for like 18 months. Then he didn't touch them again for like a year.
That was kiwis for me.
Yeah. I mean,
yep.
Lots of that happened. So you know what? If you put chicken, peas, and carrots in front of your kid and they have a bite of each, but then all they want is peas, go for it.
Yep.
If all they want is the 3 bites, that's fine too. But they have to try everything. It has to be what you put in front of them. And then they can have seconds of whatever without any but no, eat your, because sometimes they do, on protein kicks. Now, protein kicks tend to be shorter than carb kicks. And parents tend to get these days with, or at least when my kids were young in this age, the Atkins diets was popular. So everybody was worried about carb kicks, which is kind of problematic because a lot of times toddlers go through, their carb runs where all they eat is starches and white food might run for 10 days, right? Their protein kicks, the days that all they would eat was sausage and ham and cheese, those ran for 2 or 3 days, right? Which kind of makes sense. Like if you look at the food pyramid, it kind of makes and if you don't watch your kid for a day, they will know. I don't know any young kids that will eat a balanced meal in a day, maybe a week, go for a month. If you look if you monitor your kid's diet over the course of a month, you're like, oh, well, who knew? That's actually pretty
not so terrible after all.
It's pretty balanced. It's just they would go for, a week of eating mostly fruit and then 3-4 days of eating only dairy. I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, it works out. It works out.
If you take one thing, I mean, there's a lot of good information there, but I could almost have just hit the pause button on the podcast. Don't be a short order cook. Pause. Let that sit. Okay, because what you didn't really get into is the stress that it causes mom or dad who is, firing all these things out, right? Because what will happen inevitably, and I'm falling on the sword here.
Mm-hmm.
I did that, right? She wasn't eating. Oh, she must not like it. Let's go mac and cheese. Boom. She didn't like the mac and cheese. Let's go ham and cheese sandwich. Boom. She didn't like that. She didn't want that. Let me, here's some French fries. Oh, she snacked on some French fries. I didn't win the food battle. I just sort of gave her something that she was like, oh, I'll put that in my mouth because it's okay. It tastes fine. Right.
And you burned up how much time doing it? And how much ham and cheese did the dog eat?
Yeah, like
right.
Listen. The money thing, I'm almost okay with the money thing.
No, I mean
it was the time thing.
Right.
Is the time sink that it would take. Then now all of a sudden that dinner should be 30 minutes. It now turns into a 2-hour
marathon
cooking competition of how fast can you get out these right that ultimately she won't eat.
And at the end of it, what do you have to do?
Clean.
From how many different meal preps?
4, 5.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
this is just a Tuesday.
Yes.
Right? This is a Tuesday, y'all. So we're not even talking like, yeah. So just have the discipline. Listen to what Leslie just said. I wish that I had that inside of me when I was doing that, when Hallie was a toddler, because it would have changed literally everything.
Well, then I've got another hack for you that I've done a few times. If you're that parent and you just can't watch, like you just can't do it, send them to a grandmother, an aunt. I was that aunt. Because first of all, sometimes the kid, like y'all are starting to set up routines and you are starting to set expectations. And so sometimes, I mean, really, it's true. Sometimes kids won't do things for their parents because they're so busy trying to assert their independence from their parents, right? But they'll totally do it for grandma.
Absolutely.
I mean, back to my nephew, I just pick on him a bit. Like this is how we ended up knowing that he actually didn't like tomatoes, which by the way, that's fine because sometimes kids will actually come up with stuff that, no, they just don't affirmatively like it. Okay. And then they could get exempt from having to taste it all the time. I could get my nephew to eat so much more stuff than my sister-in-law could. Right.
Auntie E to the rescue.
Right. This is totally typical. So yes, if you're having that problem where maybe you're listening to this and you've already got a 3-year-old and you've already kind of gotten that battle, I don't know, your next door neighbor, your best friend, anybody. We had one of our kids' friends. He would come in, like he was at the stage where oh goodness gracious, they were like 8 or 9 or something. So we're well into this and had like 4 types of foods that he would eat. Right. So he came over to our house for a couple of long weekends and Jim got him cooking because Jim does a lot of cooking in our house. And Jim got him cooking with it. And all of a sudden we're going back home and his mom is like, he ate scrambled eggs and he made them. And Jim's like, well, I taught him how to make the scrambled eggs. So suddenly now they're not adverse to having the scrambled eggs because they didn't want to have the scrambled eggs before because they're doing the battle with mom and dad of no, this is all I eat. But it's an independence battle. So by teaching them how to cook the thing, then they're like, oh, but I'm eating the eggs that I made.
Right.
Give them an out.
Yes.
If you're recognizing that this is part of the problem that's going on, give them an out by having it not be you that they're doing the meal battle with, or giving them some control over what they are eating. And then this is the big one. When they start eating something, don't mention, call me, call your friend and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that they'll finally eat ham and cheese or whatever. Don't say anything to the kid.
It's no big deal.
No big deal.
This is just what we do.
Right. This is just what we do.
Yep.
And I mean, oh, cool. You want ham and cheese again? Okay, fine. But yeah, if you start to make, I'm so glad you'll eat ham. Oh, you're eating real food. Oh, goodness gracious. Right back to the reset button of, oh, well, mom wants me to do that. Well, can't do that. I mean, there's a whole lot of growing up for kids is about expressing their independence from their parents. And I think somehow in the modern era, we've kind of forgotten that.
Yes. I was the parent that celebrated. Like, yes, finally spiral mac and cheese is what did it. Not normal mac and cheese, but spiral.
Did she keep eating spiral mac and cheese?
I don't know, because we don't have. I mean, I can look at my pantry right now, and there's no spiral mac and cheese. Whatever. I can't. I'm so
Food,
beyond that.
Okay, that's one of the reasons we're having this, because food and cooking, very life administration stuff, but really with toddlers, you can get into a big old morass, which is how some people might be listening to this with older kids and stuff going, no, I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook, because the cooking 4 meals each night, the cleanup from it, all that, and then the trying to, it sucks all the joy out of it too.
Sure does. It sure does. It takes something that, if done correctly, can be relaxing into something that is, because especially like if you're learning how to cook, and I'm like, listen, I can go on and on about this. I'm tabling this. This is more discussion for a later time, because we need to move on.
We need to have another kitchen episode.
We need to move on, and let's talk about transportation. No pun intended.
Yes. That I'm bummed. All right. Transportation with toddlers, much complex. Okay. So I'm going to go off on a bit of a rant here. Okay. I was living overseas when our kids were younger and constantly listening to all the stories about Americans and their gas guzzlers. Would you like to know why Americans have gas guzzlers? Big, huge SUVs?
Tell us why.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Because we have some very tight car seat regulations, and better yet, regulations about when the car seats can turn around, right? So if you have, I don't know of a sedan that can deal with 3 car seats. So Americans have had, I don't know about now, but have had a slightly higher birth rate than the European countries. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't uncommon to have families of 3 or 4. Well, once you hit the 3rd child, you have to have the minivan or the SUV to get all the car seats that fit, unless you spread them all out. Because, I mean, at this point, we're still keeping kids in boosters until they're 8. By the way, the issue with boosters and stuff later on, it has to do with where the belt hits. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily, the booster itself doesn't do anything but raise the child to the profile of the adult belt.
Right.
Okay. Then the backwards and forward facing car seat, honestly, kids get the most benefit. And I can say this as a child of the 70s, when I was actually riding on the armrest in the front bench seat on the highway in my grandmother's car, right? And she would do the total, like we would start to stop and she would do the thing where she puts her arm in front of me. I'm protecting my grandchild, right?
Doesn't work at all, but okay.
Yeah, or if you've ever watched Mad Men and you see the scene where the kids, she's driving on the highway, smoking a cigarette, better yet, and the kids are going back and forth over okay. Yeah. The big safety benefit that comes out of the car seats is the fact that the kids are in the back and strapped in.
Right.
Okay. So if you've got back and strapped in down, you're already like you're already in good stat land.
Feel good.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. You want to have the good car seats and everything. And they do want you to have them facing back until, well, this has to, it has less to do with the kid's age and more to do with the kid's height, because eventually they can't fit facing backwards and you flip them around, right? Car seats will affect all of your transportation.
They sure will.
Issues.
Sure will.
They will. And technically for most kids, except for the tallest kids, you're probably looking at least boosters until 8 or so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Hallie at 5, I'm assuming she's a little thing. She's still in a proper car seat.
Yeah, she's moved on. She has the proper car seat, but the little like baby straps in front, those are gone, and now the seat belt comes through the little like loop thing, right? And because it has like little clasps for it to like
right. And again, all of that is making the seat belt hit the proper
right
spots.
Yep.
Right.
That's all.
Because again, the big deal is anchored in the back.
Yeah. Right. I thankfully never had any issues with this in her. She's all about it. Like, let's go places, let's do stuff. You know, very thankful about that. But I'll tell you, even 2 car seats, when we have one of her friends and, and we're in my wife's car, a little Honda Civic, like that's a stretch.
Yep.
That's a stretch if you have, if you're going to the park, shoes, change of clothes, all the other sorts of stuff.
If you have a dog.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so transportation issues, car seats affect the kind of car purchases you make.
Right.
It's going to affect how you are. If you live in a walkable city, strollers are a huge consideration. And when we were living in London and had no car, strollers were our car. Like, you want to, you want to get the stroller that can really, like if you're here in the US and you're constantly getting the stroller in and out of the car seat, or in and out of the car, pardon me, so that you can go stroll around wherever you are. Well, then one of the big things that you're going to want is foldability.
Right.
If you're living in a walking city and you have a lobby where you can keep the stroller, and even so, I mean, even if you have just the lovely foyer in your apartment or your townhouse or whatever, it's far more important that the stroller is really, really workable. If I'm using it all the time, I don't care about how foldable it is.
Right.
Put that off of your consideration.
Right. Because now it becomes like say 2-motion storage, because you can fold it up. It's like, well, who cares? Like I use it every single day.
Yeah,
right. Like
If you're using it every single day, you're not folding it. And yes, I know that means your lovely entryway that you've taken so much time to make look lovely now has a big red Phil and Ted's in it.
Yeah.
In a walking city, Phil and Ted's was an awesome stroller. Now, this was 10 years ago. I don't even know if they make them anymore because I don't live in a walking city anymore, so I don't see all the latest strollers.
Right.
But it was awesome. But yeah, you want your stroller to work hard for you.
Yeah. Consideration of your own life. Awesome. Okay, let's move on. Interior decor.
Yes, the 3-foot line.
The 3-foot line.
You know which one I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. This was a battle also that I fought.
Okay, so especially since these days we tend to have children a little bit later, it is not uncommon for us to have a decorated, better than post-college space when we bring our first kid home, right?
Level 4.
Level 4, past IKEA.
Right?
Yeah,
level
exactly.
4. If you're you know what that means if you're a listener of our podcast, because we've used that reference before. Like we're at level 1 right now. We're just in our first place. We're at level 1.
Yes, this is a level 4 thing. You probably have a place. You have probably a couple of pieces of furniture that are nicer. You have bothered to get some art and decoration around your place, all this kind of stuff. Okay, toddlers throw that all
goodbye
off. It's sometimes people ask about like when to have kids. One of the things that I think was an advantage back when people had kids younger is, well, when you had kids younger, you had crap. Like you didn't necessarily care that you had kind of a old camp trunk that you were using as a coffee table with, there's ones over there. Yeah. It's one of the kids' old camp trunks that I have a tablecloth over, and it's used as the coffee table in the reading space that we've got up here in the library. Okay. That would be kind of, if you're 24, 25, that's a relatively typical, right? And so if the kid comes along, and first of all, camp trunks have they have bulbs on the edges, or rounded edges.
So no, yep.
Right. Yep. So some of it comes a little bit sort of baby proofed. And well, if the tablecloth on it gets ruined by vomit or something, well, you get rid of the tablecloth and get another one, like all of that kind of stuff.
Even if the trunk somehow starts bubbling over because water was spilt on it and was left for 24 hours, it's a camp trunk. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Then you pitch it and okay. If you have nicer stuff, well, then, you need to protect it. First of all, you need to protect the kid. Like I don't know how many people I know that have had, say, when they were in their late 20s and up and coming in whatever profession or whatever, and got glass coffee tables. Glass coffee tables not ideal for toddlers.
Negative.
Yeah. Negative Ghost Rider. Patterns full.
And also, the 90s called and they want their table back. No, I'm just kidding. I had a glass table and then it shattered, and it's funny. Anyway.
So you kind of think through stuff like that. Because you're going to need to, a lot of the I have the flowers arranged here and I have a candle over here. Okay, candles are gone from your life for a while.
Yep.
You got to think through some of this, but the 3-foot line it's a horizontal line, 3 feet up from the floor. If you have a tall kid, you're going to want it to go higher. You have clean, bare surfaces or kid-friendly stuff.
Yeah.
Down below it.
That's
it's just, you're, for a little while, your decor is toddler decor.
Yeah. Imagine that everything under 3 feet is a hazard, right? Because that's what it is, And here's something else too. and this is a dated reference, but I think the point still stands, is that when I was growing up, and it was the 80s, my great grandmother had this living room with the plastic on the furniture, right? Even as adults, you didn't even go in that room. Okay. So first off, like, I'm not saying it right here. I want you to hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not okay to have nice things.
Right. Absolutely.
What I am saying is you don't want to be in a situation, even if you don't believe this, but again, hear what I'm saying, that your child all of a sudden thinks that this couch or this piece of furniture or this thing is more important than I am. Right? Like,
it's very cold.
Yeah.
It's very pretty. Can you appreciate what it was like for Cameron growing up as a toddler in that joint?
Yeah,
I
right.
messed up the line totally.
Yeah.
But yes.
Right. Like, so like that's even if you don't think that way, even if you don't feel that way, this person that has no frame of reference for anything just says, this couch is more important than me, or this thing is more important than me, right? Like, just stay away from that.
Or this room is just off limits, which just gives rules that you don't, because we're getting ready to get some of the toddler tips, and you'll see that this is kind of no. But you don't, your space doesn't have to be ugly. Your space doesn't have to be Spartan. By the way, I am also not a huge advocate of going out and baby proofing everything.
Yeah.
I baby proof it. If you can get maimed, seriously, Dobby, maimed, seriously injured, dead, baby proof it.
Right.
If it involves fire, electricity, baby proof, put the caps on. Fine. I didn't put, say, drawer guards on everything.
Right.
And each of my kids, in fact, smash their little fingers in a drawer, by the way, by themselves. So, so it's not like, it's not like somebody came along and vroom, and rammed the right. They smash their little fingers with it. They never put their fingers in. And you don't wish this stuff on your kids, but the fact is there's a whole lot of stuff out in the world that can hurt them and everything. They need to learn that if they run too fast on the driveway, they might fall down and skin their knee. They need to learn what their limits are. And bless you, it needs to be a skinned knee rather than they tried to do that on the marble stairs at the school and they went running down and now they have 2 broken legs.
Right.
That's the thing. You let them learn on the little stuff. So baby proofing, I only did the serious injury kind of stuff.
Right.
And then after that, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is our house. But yeah, your crystal vases, your candles, your
it's gotta go.
Yeah, the coffee table book that was a family heirloom or what, I don't know.
Right.
Don't put that down on your coffee table.
Right.
You can put it down on your coffee table later. You can't put it down on your coffee table now.
Right.
Right. Aunt May's old teapot that is 100 years old should not be anywhere near the 3-foot line.
No, because if it gets broken, that's your fault.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's the other thing that you need to come to terms with is anything that happens there, you're the one that could have prevented it, not the baby that has no frame of reference, or the toddler, I guess, at this point that has no frame of reference and that sort of thing, until you start establishing these rules and they start to understand. Right.
And they take time to establish.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Garden design.
This one's actually kind of fun. You don't necessarily have to go out and get like a whole swing set, play set and stuff like that. With a little bit of advanced thought
and imagination, you can come up. It's amazing.
Like get yourself, like tent poles or flower stakes.
Yeah.
And make a little like tent out of them and spend a year growing vines on them. Suddenly your kid's favorite spot in the yard is the little tent made by, I don't know, the jasmine vine.
Sure.
Whatever. And by the way, in the spring smell really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Tons of stuff like that, but spend some time because you're going to want Junior to be able to go outdoors some. And so spend some time thinking through what would make that space inviting. Because most of the garden stuff, I mean, if you want to go out and buy like the full swing set and have somebody put in a sandbox and all that kind of stuff and do it all at once, that's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a 6-month, but in a year or so, little kid is going to be out here wanting to do some stuff maybe. And, and maybe you don't want to have, it's totally fine if you do want to have, but if you don't want to have the plastic Playmobil water table or whatever, spend a little bit of time thinking through, but you know what? If I did that over there, I could end up making, then the hose is right there. fill it up with water every once in a while. And I now have a little water table, you know, because heck, you can do that with a cookie sheet on a rock.
Exactly. Now you're speaking my language.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you spend a little bit of time thinking it through and paying attention to what kids might like, you might be able to create a garden that is very kid friendly, but doesn't necessarily scream bright blue plastic.
Right.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great point. And like kids like to be outside. Like, there's just no, if they're inside all the time, that's going to be not great for you as a parent.
Absolutely.
Right. So they need to be like more, get them outside, playing with the water table, water features, whatever, you know, I mean, you guys have and
picking the dandelions and blowing on them. Like there's a ton of stuff that can be done outside that doesn't necessarily have to have equipment to do it.
Right.
Big, huge one. I'm sorry. I was very excited about this. My nephew came over. He's 5. He came over for Easter, and we did not know because on the side of one of his toys, there's it's a playhouse that, you know, like with the little Playmobil men or whatever inside. And it has stickers of a growing garden that has tomatoes on it. And by the way, he could eat his body weight in tomatoes. So we're like, wait, Uncle Jim's growing a garden because we have a very sunny spot along our driveway. So we've just put lots of plants in containers and we're growing all sorts of container vegetables from cucumbers and tomatoes to basil, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh. In heaven. We've done that you can do that with a few pots. All of the stuff that we're doing is container gardening.
Easy.
Kids love stuff that they can go out and they can pick off that leaf or they can pick off that fruit and just not hard to do.
No.
Little bit of advanced planning.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to get into our to-dos. We are at the 50-minute mark.
Oh man, I'm in trouble. I can go through. Okay, I can go. I promise. All right, a few to-dos for going on in toddlerdom. One, now is the time to really start teaching chores. As early as possible, start it with the single, you know, your blocks are over there. Okay, those blocks need to go in that bin. You know, start it very, very simple. Once they kind of master that, then move it up and add in different chores or have it be a double chore. To the point that you're eventually getting them to zones, but you need to start now.
Yeah. And something that really helped us in this area, I think this is one of the areas that as bad as eating was for us, this was a success because what we did was we got those little like foldable bins, you know, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Like the cubes you get at Target.
Yeah, right. And then we would put pictures on them. Right. So her dolls go in this bin, clothes go in this bin, accessories go in this bin, whatever. That's just a little 30-second sprinkle on there.
Absolutely. The easier you make it for them. And then you throw in the games like, we have cleanup music or we have a cleanup timer or whatever it is. You can make it fun, but start them in on the habit now.
Absolutely.
And start small and build up.
Very good.
Yay. This one we talked about a little bit, setting boundaries and letting them explore within those boundaries. Okay. The first thing I have is baby proofing. 1, do the baby proofing for the serious stuff. You don't have to do the baby proofing for everything, but have a safe space indoors and out that your kid can run around generally unsupervised, or, you know, like you can be in the kitchen and they can be in the living room and you don't actually have to worry about complete mayhem.
Right.
Right.
You can do the glance.
Right. You can do the glance. Right. And really because at this age, they are information seeking missiles. They want to touch, taste, feel, smell, pull, all of it. Let them do it.
Yeah.
Let them do it. Also setting boundaries about saying no. Your toddlers are going to be a little bit because for the first 12 months of their life, you know, every time they're hungry, you stick a bottle in their mouth and, you know, you feed them. When they're wet, you know, they cry and they're wet and you change them and stuff. They're used to you doing whatever they want.
They have learned and mastered the art of manipulation at this point. Not in a negative way. It's just the reality. I cry, this thing happens. Done deal.
Exactly. And now is the time to start setting some limits and sometimes saying no. Even if you're just saying no for a few minutes, like, and you know, I want this now. Yeah. No, you can have it in 5 minutes. And 5 minutes, by the way, could be a long time, but just setting the boundaries of pushing it back. No, every time you ask for something or every time you demand something, you don't automatically get it.
Right.
Right. The 2 choices rule. This one's awesome. Don't ask your toddler what they want to eat or what they want to wear and stuff. But you can do you want the chicken or do you want the fish sticks?
This or that.
Right. This or that. Totally great. Do you want to wear the pink shirt or the red shirt?
Yep.
Totally fine. You start to get them, so they can feel like that they're, owning into stuff. But yeah, don't give them, do you want to sit in that booth or do you want to sit in that booth? 2 choices. As they get a little older, you can add in 3 choices. But work on the 2 choices first.
My wife still operates on the 2-choice rule.
2-choice.
If I give her more than 3 choice, it's over. It's over. Okay.
Oh, the freezing up.
Yeah. No. Yep.
All right. If in doubt, the problems that a little bit of food or an extra hour to bed can solve are huge. And in all of this, in all of their temper tantrums and everything else, sometimes they'll be in more phases and stuff. Sometimes, you know what? It's 4:00 in the afternoon. Maybe it's just that they're a little bit hungry. A snack bar or a piece of stick cheese might work just fine. If you have like 3 days where they're just melting down all the time and they haven't actually like gotten sick, because sometimes kids get melty downy before they get a cold or something, just put them to bed an hour earlier.
Right.
So, I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes a little bit of extra sleep will just take the edge off there.
Highlight that statement, circle it. I'm going to timestamp it so you can click to the episode and say, this is what you hear. Yes. A little bit of food, a little bit of time, make all the difference in the world. Just like it does for
absolutely
adults.
They really, it's true. It's true. I mean, you're just dealing with a being that doesn't have any tolerance for frustration and self-control. Even, your worst adults have some self-control.
Right.
Right? Toddlers
Maybe.
just don't. It's, what you're teaching them. Anyway, and then the other stuff that I still have a few notes here, but we covered most of it, which is why we're at 56 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But I do like this last line. I think it's really well thought out. Knowing what the meltdowns are about, not the subject matter.
Right. The subject matter is almost irrelevant.
Yeah, but the meta, it's the frustration, it's the lack of coping mechanisms, insecurity about new independence, right? Like you got to get that.
Yep.
It's not the thing, it's how they're feeling.
Do I have time to tell this tag story? Or tie to mine?
Go.
Okay, think of it as like toddlerdom is like you're playing a game of tag. And remember, there was always somebody that was it and that's coming out to get you and tag you up. And then there's a tree or a car or some object that's the safe place. Okay. And as you get faster, you would move further away from the safe place to run away from it. So if you get more but what you need to know is that it is always, or not it, that the safe place is always there. It's always in the same spot. It's reliable, it's central and stuff like that. So one of the things that happens a little bit after kids start to walk is the clinging phase. And it's kind of like constantly tagging up with the safe space. Like it's usually one parent, but whichever one it is, you can't turn around. You can't go to the bathroom without child being right there. All they're trying to do is confirm that, no, you're really right there. You're really, okay, got it. If you indulge that for 2 weeks, then it goes.
Yes.
If you don't indulge it, then they keep trying. So know what the stresses are about. Again, not the subject matter, but what are they actually trying to achieve?
Yes.
And because sometimes it's a little bit kind of like accelerating through a collision.
Right.
Maybe if you accelerate at right this point, you can actually avoid the collision. Yeah. It's kind of the same concept.
Awesome. A lot of good information there. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you give us a thumbs up on the YouTube's comments. Love to hear your strategies and what you've come up with as far as dealing with toddlers. That I'm hopefully going to have another one. So I'd like to know too, so I don't fall into the same traps. Guys, I didn't plug it at the beginning because I was so frustrated about the power brick, but Discord. We have our Discord. It's up and running. All the rooms are ready to go. We're super excited to see you there. If you want to get in touch with us, that is the best way. The link is in the description of the podcast. And it's also on the website in the top right-hand corner. Just click the Discord icon and you are good to go. Hopefully we will see you there. I've been Ryan Talon.
And I have been Leslie Loftus.
And you guys have been awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
All right. How'd we do? We make it?